37 on the calendar in the matter of Goppert versus Fitzgerald. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, ma'am. Have a seat, please.
Mrs. Goppert, you and your husband own a trucking company.
That's
and
correct.
You became acquainted with the defendant, I gather, through his wife, girlfriend? Girlfriend. At some point, and for a reason that you will tell me, it is your claim that you paid some fines that he had outstanding in the criminal justice system. Your arrangement, according to you, was that the fines would enable him to get a certain kind of a license that would allow him to drive a truck, and he would be working for you and your husband's company, and he would pay you so much per week or month, whenever he's paid, out of his pay.
That's correct.
The two couples, you and your husband and the defendant and his girlfriend, went on a trip together. There was an argument. You stopped speaking to each other after you paid these fines. Mr. Fitzgerald says that it was very nice of you to pay the fines. He didn't ask you to pay the fines. He had no intention of going to work for your husband. He had no intention of taking up trucking. He had a good job that he liked. And you, out of the goodness of your heart, paid his criminal fines. Is that your defense, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Fitzgerald, what were these fines for, and how old were they, sir?
Dating back to probably 1999 to 2000 to 2001.
What were they for?
Various charges, logbook violations.
What is that?
I had a CDL license that was suspended.
What is a CDL?
Commercial driver's license, 18-wheeler.
Yes.
At one point in time, I was paying big money to child support, trying to make ends meet, and ended up getting some fines, pulled over.
For what?
They're just different things.
Come on.
Logbook violations.
Tell me what's a logbook violation.
It's a book that a commercial driver's license has to keep about the hours of work, the hours of driving the truck.
So you first found guilty of violating the code to keep that book, which you keep in order to maintain an honest record of the driving hours you put in.
Well, ma'am, I was not found guilty of that.
You mean you were found not guilty of that and they imposed a fine anyway?
Yes.
On top of several other tickets.
Shh. That's an interesting criminal justice system. You were found not guilty and got a fine anyway?
Yes, ma'am, of different charges. The charges were reduced.
So you pled down to a lesser charge?
Yes, ma'am.
I got it now. So you accumulated all of these fines. Did you still have a driver's license, sir?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Mr. Fitzgerald, you're supposed to pay fines. I'm sure you were told that as a condition of the plea and the reduction in the fines, so that, I don't know whether there was potential jail time involved, you were supposed to pay the fines.
Yes, ma'am.
So why don't you? That's your responsibility.
Well, at that time, Your Honor,
Let's not talk about it that time when you had big child support, you had other things that you had to take care of. We're talking about 6 years later, sir.
Yes, ma'am. The problem was, like I said, back years ago, I used to pay more money in my check for child support than I was actually making those times in points, where I actually received check stubs stating void, $0. I actually owed the company money.
Well, sir, that's
You can't take blood from a stone, Your Honor.
Mr. Fitzgerald, how many children do you have, sir?
3 children.
The only reason that they were taking out more money, sir, than you actually made is because there was a time when you got behind in your child support.
Yes, ma'am.
They don't keep me here because I'm gorgeous. You could have disagreed with me, Mr. Fitzgerald. It would have gone far. So the reason... Right, you would have missed opportunity. So for that reason, sir, you didn't do the right thing with regard to your 3 children. And the state said, okay, what's your first name?
Chris.
Chris. Okay, Chris, we're going to really give it to you. We're going to take all your money. So whatever you work for, we're going to take because you didn't do the right thing to begin with. What I don't understand, Mr. Fitzgerald, is that after you owed this money, now we're talking about years later, and I assume that now, based upon your answer, you were making good money. So if you were making good money, why didn't you pay your debt to society?
I can't answer that, Your Honor. Just...
Good, that's a good thing you can't answer it. You don't know, there's no good reason.
Doesn't pay any of his debts.
Shh, Miss Scott. Does it sound as if you're losing yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Now you want to tell me how come it came about that you paid these fines for him?
Absolutely.
First of all, there had to come a time in your relationship with Mr. Fitzgerald, which was a brief relationship because you only met him through his girlfriend, who was a friend of yours, that you found out that he had all these old fines, right?
Right.
You didn't, go like this to your crystal ball and they say, oh, Chris Fitzgerald has fines, I'm going to pay them. Somebody must have told you.
Do you have any you'd like me to pay?
Right.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? So would you please tell me, Miss Goppert, how you found out that Mr. Fitzgerald had these fines that precluded him from having a driver's license?
Okay. In speaking with his girlfriend, Terry, over coffee in a convenience store one morning, it was brought to my attention that he did want to drive a truck again, but
Is that
he
what
had
she
no
said?
license.
That's what she said.
She asked to drive.
Hey. What's your name?
Terry.
How long have you been a friend of Terry's?
Maybe just a little short of a year.
Okay. So you and Terry having coffee, she says that a boyfriend was interested in driving a truck.
He had a CDLA, yes, and that we had the trucking company, and he'd like to get back into the trucking company because he made good money. How convenient. I happen to have a trucking company.
Great.
So we talked about it over several weeks. I said, well, he needs to fill out an application. Let's see what we can do with it. After the application process, I find out he doesn't have a license. And he had 14 tickets within 4 municipalities. They produced a copy of his expansion record from New York State Department of Motor Vehicle to me.
Who produced it?
Terry brought it into work. I looked it over and I said, wow, what is this mess? She proceeded to tell me that at one point, Chris had retained an attorney. The attorney did get some of the charges dismissed. We went from 14 down to 7. 7 of them were dismissed.
Your Honor, I would my attorney...
Was that a question you were posing to me?
Yes, I'm trying to...
Oh, just a second. I don't answer questions. I ask them.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I agreed to drive her truck.
Oh,
that's all
now
it was.
there you...
Now, listen,
now
Your
you've
Honor,
got just a second. Hey, Slick, I read your answer. You want to read it again?
And later today,
Were you there that night, sir?
Yes, I was.
Good. That's all I asked you.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Karen Gobbert claims former friend Chris Fitzgerald racked up multiple tickets as a truck driver. She paid the outstanding fines on his behalf and claims Chris never paid her back.
Okay, so far, I haven't heard a conversation with Mr. Fitzgerald. I've heard a conversation only with Terry.
Chris also, over the course of the winter, wasn't working and needed money. And my husband and I also have 11 rental properties. And Chris is somewhat of a handyman, if that's what you want to call it. He put a steel roof on one of our rental
He
properties.
worked for you over the summer. Go ahead.
Yeah, and he was paid in full.
Go ahead.
And of course, during the course of him working on our rental properties, there was discussion about getting these tickets resolved. It was agreed that I would pay the fines for him so that he could get his CDLA. He would drive truck for us. Then the bottom line number, said and done, after we got to that point where everything was paid and he started driving truck for us, I would take whatever Chris and I agreed to per week out of his pay to repay the debt.
You had that conversation with Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes, I did.
Okay, now, how much did you pay to get his record cleared?
$635.
Okay, go ahead.
After we got all the fines paid, it was time for him to go to the New York State DMV and get his permit so that he could take the 6-hour course. I had given Terry at the store over coffee one morning $100 in cash. In fact, it was a $100 bill, and she remarked how she never had one of those. And I gave her the $100 bill so that Chris could obtain the permit and pay for the 6-hour course.
Go ahead.
So there's another $100.
Well, not necessarily, but go ahead.
Okay. He took all the receipts to DMV to get his permit and could not get it because he had no birth certificate. He has no social security card. He has no identity. So he calls me up all in a tizzy. These people, blah, blah, blah. He's irate. Bring me what you got. Let's see what you got. He comes over to my house. Come to find out he was born in Canada. He has dual citizenship. So I paid another $35 on my credit card, and here's a copy of the application to try to get him a birth certificate from Canada.
Go ahead.
That's it. Not, my time, my postage, endless hours, letters, communication, correspondence,
Okay,
telephone
Mr.
calls.
Fitzgerald, let me hear your version of the event, sir.
Ma'am, it started about the time she stated. Karen had paid $635, but she wanted me to drive her truck. I gave up driving truck in the year 2000. I gave up driving for 30 cents a mile. She was putting me in a truck for 30 cents a mile. Here we are 6 years later. Inflation's gone up, ma'am.
Mr. Fitzgerald, you told me in your answer, sir, you didn't want to drive a truck. And could you explain to me why you went down to try to get a license?
Because I need a license for many reasons. I need one for an identification card. I need one to drive to and from work.
Well, if you didn't go down to get it in order to drive trucks for her, what did you go to her house for when you were having difficulty and have her put on her credit card an additional $35, sir? Listen to me. If your intention, or at least your articulated intention, was not to become part of her business, if you couldn't get a driver's license, sir, why didn't you go to your girlfriend to get the $35? Why would you go to a stranger, Mr. Fitzgerald? That doesn't make sense to me, sir.
Exactly, ma'am. I never asked Mrs. Goppert.
No. You did go to her house.
After the fact.
No. Listen to me very carefully. Watch my mouth. You did go to her house.
After the fact.
After what fact?
The fact that she'd already spent the $35 for the application fee, ma'am.
No. We're not talking about the application fee, sir. We're talking about the fact that you went to get a license.
Yes, ma'am.
Which you say you needed for identification. Just identification, not because you had any business with her. You just need an identification to sort of get around. You haven't had it for years, but you needed it now. And then you ran into some difficulty because you didn't have a birth certificate. So why wouldn't you go to your girlfriend if you didn't have $35 and say, listen, I need $35. I don't have it. I don't have a credit card. I need it now. Or why not just wait? You've waited for years anyway.
Your Honor, I could have reached into my own pocket and pulled out the $35.
Then
but
why?
Mrs. Goppert has volunteered her money to pay my fines, to pay everything for me
Mr.
to drive
Fitzgerald,
her
you're
truck.
not following me, sir.
Your Honor, you're not following me. She wanted me to drive her truck. I agreed to drive her truck.
Oh,
That's all
now
it was.
there you...
Now, listen,
Now,
Your
you've
Honor,
got just a second. Hey, Slick, I read your answer. You want to read it again?
No, ma'am, I know what I said.
What you said was you had no intention of driving a truck. Now you tell me you did
Not
have
at 30
intention.
cents a mile, ma'am. I quit 6 years ago at 30 cents a mile. I'm not going to start. Why go backwards in life?
Mr.
Life is going
Fitzgerald,
forward.
Listen to me. When my mouth starts to move, you have to stop.
Yes, ma'am.
So is what you're saying to me, sir, that you agreed to drive a truck for her and you agreed to pay her out of your pay, but when push came to shove, she was only prepared to pay you 30 cents a mile, and you weren't going to work for the same wages that you worked for 6 years ago?
Correct.
Well, that's too bad. You should have figured that out before you took her money.
Thank you.
What you're saying to me now is different from what you put in your answer. What you're saying to me now is there was an agreement to pay her back, but you did not have an agreed upon amount of money for when you drove with her. When push came to shove, you said, I'm not driving for you for
Your Honor,
35.
I never
I'm
asked
speaking. I'm speaking, sir. That's what you just told me. And if that's what you just told me, you don't understand that you cannot modify the terms of a contract. Your contract with her was a verbal contract. She paid the fines. You were going to go to work for her. If you breached that agreement by not going to work for her, that, sir, does not vitiate your contract. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $635.
Thank you.
But she did lie.
She's a wealthy woman, and she's got more money than I have and ever will have.
I don't just shell out money to people. Wealthy or not wealthy, money don't grow on trees in my backyard.
I agreed to drive her truck, and now I'm not going to.
If you had no intention of driving a truck, why do you fill out the application? Why waste my time?
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Taylor versus Lorette. Step forward.
22-year-old Lacey Taylor is suing her ex-fiancé, Robert Lorette, for unpaid charges on a Lowe's credit card.
Miss Taylor, you and Mr. Lorette used to live together.
Correct.
According to your complaint, you made a loan to him.
Right.
The loan to him was for tools for a business that he wanted to start. You made the loan to him by taking out a credit card for
Yes.
Lowe's, where he purchased the tools with the understanding that he was going to pay that bill. And when you broke up, he did not pay the bill, and you wanted to pay the bill because this was an expense solely for him and solely for his business.
Correct.
Mr. Lorette says he gave you money to pay the bills. You were in charge of paying the bills, and you should have paid the Lowe's bill like you paid all the other bills.
I never got any money.
Okay. When did you live together, Miss Tabler?
We moved in October 2004.
Did you move into his house or did he move into your house?
I moved into his apartment with him and his mother
When did you take out this Lowe's credit card?
in November 2004.
So a month after you moved in.
Yes.
Well, tell me about it.
He had been working for different people for construction, and he wanted to start up his business again because he had it once before. So we had agreed that since he didn't have enough credit to get a credit card from Lowe's, we would open it under my name, him sign for it. That way he has his own card, and he would be responsible for the bill, basically everything. It was just my name on it just so he can get the account.
Well, that was in November of 2004.
Right.
When was the first purchase made?
Actually in November 2004.
And when the bill came in December, who paid it?
I did.
You did?
Yes.
From what account? Mr. Lorette, from what account did you pay it?
I did several times go in and make payments, besides me giving her money for the bill.
Just a sec. You went into the store
Yes, ma'am.
and made payments.
Yes, ma'am.
How often did that happen?
Every now and then. It only happened once or twice.
Now you're thinking back to what you just said to me, Mr. Lorette. You're trying to take it back, sir. Don't play with me, sir. You're never going to outsmart me. And there's a very good reason for that. Do you know what the reason is?
No, ma'am.
Think about it. You're not going to be able to outsmart me, sir. So when you said who paid for it, and you said, I did, that was the right answer. You paid for it, starting in November of 2004. Let me see the last bill that you got. Miss Lorette, start talking, sir.
Well,
That's the last one.
I don't understand that if she thought I was responsible for it, which the bill is in her name and it goes to her house, her address, they have no way of contacting me. If she thought I was liable for the bill, she should have gotten in contact with me.
Actually, the collection agency did have his number because I gave them his number, and they called him and they said no one answered.
Well, sure, because they had you. Do you have a job?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been working at the same job?
I just transferred to a different job. I had the previous job for a year.
Who do you work for?
I'm a carpenter.
Who do you work for?
Rodney,
How long have you worked for Rodney?
I've been with him for about 6 months.
You get paid in check or cash?
Check.
Prior to that, who are you working for?
I was working for another construction company.
For how long?
Well, I was with him for about a year.
Paid in check or cash?
Uh,
Oh, it's
he-
not an answer.
He paid me cash and no taxes taken out, and I filed taxes at the end of the year.
So there was no way that the Lowe's people, if they wanted to come and get money from you, could attach your salary. Because till the end of the year, nobody knew you had a salary, right?
Yes, ma'am, you're right.
I know I'm right. Mr. Lorette, I got that I'm right, sir. I want to know, why don't you take care of your bills?
I did give her money for it.
Well,
What
show
she did
me,
with
sir.
The money,
Show me that you gave her money.
I can't show you because she was living with me. I trusted her.
Well, tell me how you gave her money for this Lowe's bill.
When she opened that account, the first few jobs I did, I gave her like $1,200.
Yes.
And then when the business did go down and I did sell the tools, I gave her an additional $600. What she did with the money, that was her.
Okay, so you gave her, according to you, $1,800.
Yes, ma'am.
He actually pawned some of the tools also.